Good morning, everyone. I said good morning, everyone. What a fantastic occasion we gather ourselves here to celebrate today. And what an even more remarkable set of circumstances that we are able to celebrate here today, freely and openly. This month has tremendous significance for the LGBTQ community. This month marks the 46th anniversary of the Stonewall riots in New York City, riots that galvanized the modern movement for LGBT equality. In a more contemporary sense, this month we expect that the Supreme Court will affirm once and for all the notion that marriage equality should be the law of the land, even in my native Georgia. These watershed and potential watershed moments aside, I think it is incumbent upon us to continuously imbue this month with the meaning and significance that it deserves. It isn't enough just to gather in auditoriums like this and have positive and affirming words, though gatherings like this are important. It isn't enough just to attend rallies and marches and speeches and parades, even though those things are fun and those displays in the public are crucial. No, this month has to have substantive meaning. To me, pride means that we'll never stop working for a better tomorrow. Pride means not believing that progress is the status quo. Pride means that we'll be better to ourselves and to each other. Pride means that we'll think and act in love and not from fear or malice. Pride means that we won't forget what was or the promise of what can be. Pride means not having to apologize for who you are and never having to engage in debates about the validity of who you are. Pride means that while we celebrate the triumphs of the Laverne Coxes and Caitlyn Jenners, we remember that theirs are not stories that are replicated across so many swaths of this country. For far too many LGBT youth, the notion of just simply existing is still not within reach. Pride means knowing that marriage equality, while fantastic, is just one bend in the long moral arc towards respect, equality, and coexistence under the law. There is still so much work to be done across a whole host of spaces. Throughout today's event, the only thing that I will ask of you, aside from the silencing of your cell phones, is that we never let the message of pride be taken for granted. We are not here in this moment by mere happenstance. Let us embrace this moment unabashedly and move forward boldly. Let no task be too difficult. Let no goal be too small. I now call upon the Joint Armed Forces Color Guard of Washington, D.C. for the presentation of the colors, to be followed by Mr. Matthew Swanson, who will perform our national anthem. Will you please stand?
Colors! Up! Guard! Present! Up!
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Guard, forward, up. Colors turn, march.
You may be seated. A quick programming note: due to a last-minute scheduled vote, Representative Pocan unfortunately will not be able to join us today. In his absence, I will be doing my Celine Dion impersonation. It's really good, I promise. Moving right along. Since joining the department in 2012, Dot Harris has steadfastly led the department's efforts in outreach to minorities and historically underrepresented communities in hopes of full inclusion in our nation's clean energy future. In a rapidly changing world where words like diversity and inclusion often get tossed around carelessly, Director Harris has sought to engender a sense of purpose around the work the department does in this space. A Denmark, South Carolina native, she brings over 30 years of leadership and managerial experience to this post. She also gladly serves as the department's representative on the White House Council on Women and Girls. Please join me in welcoming Director Dot Harris.
Thank you, Trey. I just love you, actually. This is great. First of all, folks, thank you for coming. And it's important for this 2015 LGBT program. And the interesting thing about this program is not really for the LGBT community, it's for all of the rest of us to understand and appreciate the value that they bring. First, I wanted to for sure welcome our Deputy Secretary for coming to speak today, and our guest speaker, Ms. Dr. Johnson, who you will hear from shortly. Listen, I kind of started my day off yesterday kind of very interesting. Pat, who's one of our LGBT amazing leaders in my office, brought her wife in with their two beautiful they're twins, just amazing, girl and boy. And so I was all fulfilled with just seeing them and just seeing, I remember before the twins were born and I volunteered to babysit and all those things. And they come in to see us. And then, of course, I had an interesting day. Also got to take one of my MESEP students to the White House South Lawn event. So really upbeat yesterday. And unfortunately, I got some pretty bad news on my evening where one of my employees passed, Dan Burrell. So I just wanted to pause for a moment, for just a moment of silence for him. Dan worked in my program analyst in my Office of Civil Rights and EEO, which is another one of my duties here, that responsible for the EEO and civil rights of all folks, everyone here at the department. And Dan was one of our amazing leaders in our office. So wanted to just pause for a second to give thanks for him and pray for he and his family. So wanted to just take a moment to acknowledge that. Listen, to the purpose of this meeting today, the LGBT community, I have had the pleasure of speaking to this amazing group of students called OSTEM, over 700 LGBT leaders at every Ivy League school in this country, all amazing schools in this country. I got to speak to them in New York, I remember about a year ago. and just talking to them and having to encourage them about the importance and the value that they bring as an individual, bringing their diversity and bringing their flavor, I call it, to this country and to the impact they have is quite extraordinary. So, and I had the pleasure of meeting with them again as well, led by the support of one of our leaders at Savannah River plant location. So the point of it all is making sure we understand that diversity is a very beautiful thing in all forms as it comes. And the LGBT brings that, whatever makes up each individual as they contribute to each of us is important. And one of the things that they said they wanted the most was to be accepted. And I'm very particular about how we bring other people and accept those in our workplace, because everyone has the right and the ability and the amazing talent to do that. And I will be honest with you, a lot of my friends I've known in the LGBT community are quite amazing, exceptionally amazing. I never forget one of my first CFOs that was just an amazing leader. But the one stat I just want to leave with you guys that just hurts my heart in all kinds of ways when it comes to the homelessness in this country and the youth, the homeless youth in this country. Do you realize that 40% of the homeless youth in this country are from the LGBT community, which is absolutely startling to me, to have 40% of our youth that are been let from their homes simply because the family members are just uncomfortable with who they are. That is I can't even fathom that. So that particular stat, of all the stats that I know about the LGBT community and all that we know, we need to embrace all individuals in this country to be the amazing country that we are, diversity in all shapes and forms. So when we talk about it and making sure that we all are comfortable in our own skin, and that's where it really comes down to. It's all about not making this community feel comfortable. It's more about our insecurities. So it's a matter of us understanding who we are and accepting all those, because like I said, I've never met a stranger. Matter of fact, I thrive on people that are different from me, to be honest with you. So diversity is a very, very personable, very special thing for me. So embracing this community is what we all want to do, okay? So let's get on that playing field first. Now, let me introduce the Deputy Secretary. Dr. Elizabeth Sherwood Randall has been with the administration from the very first day, working at the National Security Council on topics ranging from everything from countering weapons of mass destruction to sexual harassment in the military to revitalizing the America's alliance relationships in Europe. She started out working for then senior Senator Biden Jr., and really did amazing works in her ranks as one of the first female Rhodes Scholars in her day. So here at the department, she makes it clear her support of diversity and inclusion, and make no mistake about that. So with that, please have warm welcome for Dr. Randall. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dot. And Trey, where are you? Trey was hiding behind there. Did he come into the audience? Where is he? Come on back out here. This is your show. Please have a seat in my seat. Trey got me through confirmation. He was part of the really awesome team that helped ensure that I sailed through that Senate confirmation process, which, as you know, is a pretty daunting one. So I'm so thankful to be here with you today to celebrate Pride Month. And it really is meaningful to be with this community today. Dr. Johnson, welcome back to the Forrestal Building. We're looking forward to hearing from you. I want to thank our great team in the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity for everything you do every day to support our commitment to diversity in the federal government and in the energy sector. And I want to thank GLOBE, our employee resource support group for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer employees. And I want to welcome our colleagues from FERC. So I learned that because of our celebration last June, before I was here at the department, we inspired FERC to start their own LGBT pride group after attending our event. So that gives a sense of what you were talking about the importance of reaching out, not just to those who are here, but to those who we may inspire. Many of you may have seen the movie The Imitation Game sometime in the last year. And if you did, you know it's the true story of Alan Turing, who was a brilliant British mathematician who was hired as a code breaker during World War II. He met that challenge by inventing one of the world's finest programmable computers. His work helped to save lives. It helped us to win the Second World War, and it helped to launch the modern computer age. But Alan Turing was gay, and he had to hide that fact in order to work for the British government and accomplish all that he did on behalf of the Allies. This made for a great movie plot, but it does not make for great public policy. We believe that you should not have to hide who you love to serve the country you love. Discrimination and intolerance hurt, and they get in the way of fulfilling our mission as a nation. We need to ensure that in our community here at the Department of Energy, we do everything we can to prevent discrimination on the basis of gender, sexual orientation, race, religion, or ethnicity. There is no place for discrimination in the workplace or, frankly, any place. To do otherwise is to risk turning away the next Alan Turing from our midst. Those of you who know the Secretary and me know that we are firmly committed to bringing together the most talented people across our great land to pursue our department's vital missions in science and energy, in nuclear security, and in management and performance. We need to stand together, and we need to bring together all the talent that is available in our nation to meet the challenges that we face. Excluding or demeaning any group weakens us all. And at this department, this really matters. As I've said before, the Department of Energy is our people. And to keep our competitive edge on the world stage, we have to recruit and retain the very best. That's you, it's your peers across the country, and it's also the young people who we need to recruit and inspire to study STEM and to know they are welcome, whatever their gender, whatever their sexual orientation, their race, religion, or background. So I'd ask you to please help me to communicate this message clearly and ensure that we not only talk the talk, but that we walk the walk. And if you ever see something that's not consistent with that, I want to know about it, because that's not who we are and it's not what we stand for in this administration and in this department. Thank you very much for joining us here today, and thank you for what you do every day on behalf of our great nation.
Thank you, Dr. Sherwood-Randall. Distinctions aren't anything new for our keynote speaker. Dr. Christina Johnson has been awarded the prestigious International Dennis Gabor Award for Creativity in Modern Optics. She is a recipient of the John Fritz Medal for Developments in Engineering. Though some intense debate exists around her standing administration-wide, there is consensus among the gaggle gathered here today that she has the distinction of being the highest-ranking out official in the department's history. Distinctions aside, Dr. Johnson has demonstrated a fierce commitment to excellence in work and a capacity to bring forth the solutions our complex energy issues require. We're so very honored to welcome her back to Forrestal. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Christina Johnson.
Well, thank you, Trey, for that marvelous introduction. And I can't tell you how much fun it is to be back and to be here with my, I was going to say old friends and colleagues, but let's just say friends and colleagues. Madam Secretary, Director, the various officials. We have a lot to celebrate today, as you know, both in the policy as well as in the energy front. From my experience at DOE, I know it's the hardest working agency. And when I was thinking about what I might talk about today, I wanted to talk about culture and engagement. And I see some of the folks that I had the pleasure of being engaged and working hard with. So I know our culture is one of work hard and work hard. There wasn't a whole lot of play, and I know that if you're anything like myself and my team, leaving before 9 o'clock at night was an early night. In fact, we had Wednesday nights, which was put down your pencils and leave by 8:30, where I'd walk around and tell the mostly interns that we had, who were phenomenal, working with our great individuals that are here full time, that you have to leave. It's 8:30. Go. Leave, go have fun. But I know it's hard working, and I also know we've arrived as one of the top tier agencies in the federal government. How do I know that? Well, I was working out in the gym a couple weeks ago, and there was Secretary Moniz sitting to the left of Secretary Kerry at the Iranian nuclear negotiations, and I was like, Secretary Moniz, that's awesome. So I think that in a short period of time, because of your engagement, we've been able to accomplish a lot. If you think about over the last 6 years, I was here during the Recovery Act, and just to name a few things I thought about, we doubled the amount of renewables onto the grid. We actually started licensing the first small modular nuclear reactor. And the significance of that, which I think is a testament to our ability to engage across the agencies as well. So there was the executive order, Greening the Government, that came out. I think it was Executive Order 31514, something like that. And we all had to come up with what percentage of our energy would we commit to being green by 2020. And we knew DOD was going to come out strong, so we knew we were the Department of Energy. We had to be strong also. But thinking about it, we consume about 1 gigawatt of power, and one small modular reactor at 300 megawatts would green our government, at least our agency in the government. And that really was the genesis of it. And then we worked across the agencies to make sure there was one word in our response to that greening the government, which was nuclear. And it shows up once, which is important because it's the strength of words. And there isn't a word, I think, that's any more stronger about today than pride. And Trey, you were brilliant at that. I want to get your comments, because it's exactly right. The kind of pride that comes from respect, not hubris, but respect for each individual person. So when I was thinking about all that we've accomplished, we go back a little bit, and I think about my own career a wee bit. And I graduated from Stanford in 1984, and I went to Ireland for a postdoc. Now, it was interesting because when I arrived in Ireland, it still wasn't legal to sell contraceptives. So my friends would actually take the train, 3-hour train up to Belfast. In 1985, there was a referendum on divorce, and it was made illegal. And I saw how my friends and colleagues felt disenfranchised. They felt less than because they couldn't be with the people they loved in an open way, fully engaged as citizens of that society. Kind of sounds familiar. But 30 years later, I have to say I couldn't be any prouder of my Irish heritage than what they did last month. So, I am also an Irish citizen. I did have to give it up when I became undersecretary, but I have been able to be dual citizen again. I'm very proud of where we've seen and what we've done in the last 30 years. So after a couple of years of postdoc in Ireland, I came back to the University of Colorado at Boulder, mainly because there's an old Irish saying that 7 children can be taken care of by one mother, but 7 children can't take care of one mother. And I thought, okay, we'd all grown up, we've gone to all places around the country. I'd go back to Colorado, and I'd be the one to be there during her later years. Of course, then she announced she was getting married, remarried. My father had passed in '76, so it was an interesting and terrific 14 years. But during that time, I remember the election of 1992. And some of my friends were very excited that Bill Clinton got elected. I did have friends from the other side of the aisle. Maybe they were less excited. But all of us walked out of the celebration that night very depressed. And it was because there was also something else on the ballot in 1992. And it was passed November 3rd, 1992, which was something called Amendment 2, which meant that any of us could be fired for being gay. And in the academy, that's important. I actually sat on promotion and tenure, and I did see colleagues come up whose scholarship was questioned because it was in queer studies. So not having that protection would be critically important to really the underpinnings of the mission of that particular institution. Couldn't have been happier in 1996 because of the engagement and because there were talented advocates and people got engaged, that we were able to go back and win at the Supreme Court that the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment would violate our right to work. So that was 1996. I left in 99. My mother passed. I went to Duke to be Dean of Engineering. During that time, I remember looking at the same-sex benefits and realizing that we had same-sex benefits. And that's what I argued to the trustees. I went and engaged the trustees when I was there at the University of Colorado, and I said, you realize that because we have Amendment 2, and because we don't also have same-sex benefits, that we're competing against institutions like MIT and Stanford, the same faculty, that do have these benefits. How are we going to stack up? What was interesting is that I had a postdoc, and he was able to get his girlfriend same-sex benefits because, well, okay, let me start that again. They were not the same sex. Okay, so I had a postdoc, and his girlfriend, he was from Scotland, and lovely people. He was able to get health care benefits for his girlfriend. I could not get it for my long-term partner. So when I went to Duke, I was pleased that they had same-sex benefits, but I noticed in the retirement manual that if you were in a same-sex relationship, that your benefits once you retired ended after 3 years. And I wasn't sure why 3 years. But there were faculty members that were retiring that got engaged, and the Provost Lang, and I give him a lot of credit, with the stroke of a pen, took it out. The next day, anybody retired, they had the same benefits for their partner as not. The chapel, which is one of the iconic features at Duke. In fact, if you ask anybody that at Duke, where's the first place you should go, it's a toss-up between Cameron Indoor Stadium and the chapel. Frankly, I think the chapel wins, but individuals could not have commitment ceremonies in the chapel. The president, with the stroke of a pen and quite a lot of criticism, removed that. So now you can get engaged and actually get married in North Carolina, and you can do it in the chapel. So we've seen a lot of progress. I think the most stunning, though, was when I was being vetted for Undersecretary of Energy back in 2009. And I remember going to see Asaf Nagler, who became my chief of staff, and he was the actual person, presidential personnel, who was vetting me. And they ask you all the typical questions. Have you done this? Have you done that? Did you do this? And after you've gone through all these questions, the last question they ask you is there something we ought to know? And I looked at Asaf and I said, yes, I'm gay. And he said, oh, that's great. That's a check in the... I am now into, a couple decades of work, and I have to tell you, it's probably the first time that I ever felt so empowered that it was considered to be a real positive. So that was very, very exciting to me. I think that what we have seen also in the last 6 years, 37 states and D.C. allowing same-sex marriage, I think that's just terrific, and I really credit the leadership of this administration, from the vice president to the president to everyone here. Because as Thomas Jefferson said, there's rarely innovation at the margin. It has to come from people all over the country realizing times change, we have to change, we have to move forward. And I think that it speaks also to the strength of the culture, because I know that from the Department of Energy, service is our common bond. And it only gets stronger when we engage as a society and when we offer the same rights to all citizens regardless of race, creed, color, gender, and/or sexual orientation. And so that's why when I was thinking about some of the things that I might share today, I was just thinking again about the culture and the engagement and why culture is so strong. Because culture doesn't matter as much when you're winning, whatever you define winning as, when things are going well. When culture is important is when you face adversity, when you really have to pull together. And that's where either startups, after I left the Department of Energy, I started a company, I'm going to say a few words about that. When times get tough, that's when you find out, is your culture strong enough to persevere and move forward? And in my mind, that will make the difference in our country facing some of the challenges that Director Harris referred to. What I was pleased about is that all along I've had great leaders, whether it was at the universities I served or the Department of Energy, that really got engaged on many issues, including the rights and opportunities for LGBT individuals. Reason why, I started a company when I left DOE. One of the things that I'm most proud of that we did as Undersecretary as a group, where there are 100 individuals that came together to do a thing called the Strategic Technology Energy Plan, which was the first time that we had really laid out what would we have to do to get to 80% clean electricity by 2035. How could we do 26 to 28% reduction of our greenhouse gases by 2025? And could we get to 83% of our greenhouse gas reductions by 2050? And I felt, since I had helped put this together to reality, that I had an obligation to get engaged and to see it through. So I started a company about 4 years ago called Enduring Hydro. We did a joint venture with a PE firm out of New York called now Cube Hydro, and we've raised the largest fund for hydropower in the United States. So we have approximately $1.5 billion between equity and debt to put together to achieving our individual goal for hydropower. Now I'm going to drill down to one little nit in the plan, which is, can we get 12 to 14 gigawatts more of clean electricity from hydropower by upgrading, modernizing, or powering our non-powered dams? So in terms of moving forward and seeing where can we go when we have a dream and we have a goal, can we create a culture outside that mimics the one that I enjoyed at DOE, which was hard work and to enjoy and have fun? And after 4 years, we've turned the corner. We brought our first plant online in 2013. We now own 13 plants that we own and operate, mainly in PJM, that's Pennsylvania, Jersey, Maryland, and New York, and we plan to double or more this year. And one of the things that I've enjoyed in my life is setting those goals, doing what we can individually, and engaging. And I think as I conclude, say just a few things in closing. You may remember, some of you knew me, that I'm a real nut about the environment and about clean electricity. And so if I'm walking down the street and there's a plastic bottle or an aluminum can, I'll pick it up, but I won't throw it in the trash. I'll make sure it gets recycled. And if you've ever heard of the paradoxical commandments, so this was something that was written in 1968 by Dr. Kent Keith, and it was popularized because it was found on the wall when Mother Teresa passed away. But it goes something like, the good you do today will be forgotten tomorrow. Do good anyway. So I kind of rewrote it for one of my talks, and I said, the energy you save today, someone will waste it tomorrow. Save energy anyway. And it goes on like that a little bit. And what I've realized is that each one of us can make that difference. And what Mother Teresa said at the end of these paradoxical commandments, and you can Google it, the very last thing, which I thought was very powerful, was, you see, in the end, this is between you and God or the universe, whatever you perceive him or her to be. Well, that part was my part. It was never about between you and them anyway. So our engagement, whether it's the little things we do every day to help someone else succeed, or the little things we do every day to try and preserve our civilization for the next generation. This isn't about saving the planet. The planet's been here billions of years. It'll be here billions of years after us. The question is, will it be inhabited? Will it survive for our children and our children's children? So the same passion that I have for human rights, for LGBT rights, I know you share it for trying to clean and green our grid. And I would just like to say that we need to engage all of us in order to address some of the challenges that we talked about. Director Harris mentioned that 20 to 40% of the youth that are homeless in the U.S. self-identify as LGBT. I would say homelessness, preserving civilization, how our planet adjusts to climate change, and mitigating it, and terrorism are my three top, if I could have three wishes, those would be the things that I would solve. What each of us does every day is important to coming up with these solutions. It's part of the solution. How we will do it is whether we will be successful. If we continue to do it together and be engaged, we will be successful. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know what it's like to take 45 minutes out of your day to be here, and I couldn't be happier to share this. Thank you, Trey. Thank you, Secretary, Director.
From the audience. We have microphones at either side. If anyone had anything that was on their mind. Going
As a parent of gay children, do you have anything to share with me that I could do better? I've striven for that, but what could you share with me?
You know, that's such a great question. I helped raise 3 of my sister's children when she was ill, and then she got better and homeschooled them for a while and then sent them to boarding school. And I remember she called me one day and she goes, you know, I think it's time for the talk. And I said, why are you looking at me? No. And I said, well, you know, things are a little different than you know, when we were in school and people experiment younger. And I said, great. And it was really around the experimentation of sexual orientation. And I thought, oh, okay, this is interesting. This is the talk with the, you know, I had to really think about that. And so we did have the talk. And, you know, the thing that it was most important to me was just to say that, you know, no matter what they choose in terms of their choices going forward, that the family was going to be there, be part of it, and that we were proud of them. And I think I can tell just the way you're nodding and smiling that you know that in the environment that's here. But I remember that. That was like, oh, okay. I thought I gave them back. Now I get them at the end. No. Thank you. Well, again, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for taking the time.
Actually, I'd like to invite Director Harris onto the stage, as well as Dr. Johnson, for a quick presentation. And Madam Deputy Secretary, if you would join as well.
So, have you a certificate of appreciation that reads, in recognition of your participation and contribution to the Department of Energy's Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, and Transgender Pride Month celebration program. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm so very honored to call Russell Ames a colleague and friend. His passion and tenacity are infectious. He is the reason why DOE Globe exists in its newly revived iteration. His is the kind of unyielding commitment to purpose that makes doing things like this kind of stuff so much richer. I spoke earlier of making pride mean something. Russell is the living and breathing embodiment of that. When he isn't helping the department's mission in the Office of Science, he may be found singing with his choir as a tenor, I believe. Baritone, excuse me. Or enjoying a glass of sangria at an unnamed location in Chinatown. I am a better person for knowing him, and DOE Globe is all the stronger for having him firmly affixed as our president. Please welcome to close us out, Russell Ames.
It's a pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be with so many distinguished people. Our theme is Stronger Together, and why I want to talk about what that means is it's more than being accepted, it's being part of the team. Probably about 6 years ago, I was working for a nonprofit in South Africa when they asked if I was gay. I never talked about it, and I had been out for many years at that point, and so I answered honestly. I said I was. 4 days later, I was on a plane back to the US after I asked to get stepped down. So I remember thinking about, I'm never going to hide my identity or work at a place where I have to hide my identity. So I remember telling that story very awkwardly and very timidly to my then supervisor. And she looked me in the eye and she said, if you ever have a problem with anyone here at the department, you let me know, because that is not okay. And so it's a pleasure to work in a place now where my supervisor is actually covering a meeting for today because he knew how important it was for me to be here and to be able to attend this with you folks. And I remember the first time, I never had to tell him I'm gay, but I had a picture of my boyfriend on the desk. He goes, oh, who's that? I go, that's my boyfriend, Yoel. And he goes, well, how come you didn't invite him to the office baseball game? I said, I promise, next time. Baseball's not his thing, but I'll let him know he's invited. And that meant so much for me just to know that I was not only accepted, but a welcome part of the team. And so that's why I wanted to thank the folks that came to speak today, Dr. Sherwood-Rendell and Dr. Johnson, Director Harris. It's so important for you to show your commitment to the department, and it shows we're not just employees. We are well-respected, talented individuals that are accepted for our entire personality, and so it means so much for us to be here. And so I'll close out just by talking a little about DOE Globe. It's an employee resources group that's an outlet for if you have problems, we can help you find solutions. If you just want friends that have a shared background, we're there to chat. We meet about once a month, and we occasionally meet with our sister organization over at FERC, and it's a pleasure to work with them as well. There's information outside, so I won't bore everyone with that, but I just want to thank everyone for coming. It's a pleasure to celebrate Pride Month with you all.